Hello everybody, this is Craig C. White with HighTimeToAwake.com, and it is May 1st, and the news today is that things between Iran and Israel are heating up inside of Syria. So I know that the Syrian Army has put a bunch of tanks on the border with Israel in the demilitarized zone of the Golan Heights. So this is also heating up of war between Israel and Syria as well. But Iran has been threatening to retaliate over an Israeli attack in airstrikes in Hamah and also near Aleppo in Syria. And all the news is saying that Syria and that Israel is going to go to war soon with Iran inside of Syria. So that's where we are. That's the news. I'm making this recording a little bit in advance because I think that Israel and Iran will increase aggressions in Syria. And I think that that's probably part of a story of end-time prophecy. And if you go into the Bible, you're not really going to find a direct conflict between Israel and Iran one-on-one. But Iran is mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 38, and that's when Turkey leads Iran, Libya, and Sudan into Israel. A lot of people think that's Russia, but the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal is the primary governor amongst the provinces of Turkey. So Turkey leads the Ezekiel chapter 38 invasion into Israel. In the Bible, the Antichrist is likened to the ancient Assyrian kings. And in 734 BC, Israel was having the same kind of troubles that they're having now. They were having trouble with Syria. So Israel asked Assyria, which is northern Iraq today, Israel asked Assyria for help fighting against Syria. And Assyria did come and conquer northern Syria and then came down and conquered Damascus. And right after that, Assyria attacked northern Israel. And a very similar scenario, I think, is happening today because, like I said, that the Bible compares or likens the Antichrist to the Assyrian. Today, I think that Turkey is going to do a very similar thing that the Assyrian kings did. And while Israel is having trouble with Syria again, and maybe more specifically Iran inside of Syria today, but also the Syrian Army is against Israel. Israel may call on Turkey to help fight against the Assad regime and Iran that supports the Assad regime. So in Jeremiah chapter 23, chapter 49, verse 23, it talks about the destruction of Damascus. And it says that concerning Damascus, Hamath is confounded and Arpad. Hamah and Arpad are two cities in northwestern Syria. And according to Jeremiah chapter 49, verse 23, the destruction of Damascus begins at Hamah and Arpad. And while Israel has been shelling some Iranian sites inside of Syria and having trouble on the Golan Heights with the Syrian Army and with the Iranian Army, this has given Turkey time to amass greater numbers of troops near Hamah and Arpad. Arpad today is called Tell Rifaat. And if you remember when just a month ago when Turkey went into Syria in more force. They went into Afrin, or the Afrin region, started with the city of Afrin and removed the Kurdish fighting forces from Afrin, and they pushed them eastward towards Tell Rifaat. That's the extent of a Kurdish region in northwestern Syria. That's the biggest Kurdish region west of the Euphrates. And anyway, the Turkish army stopped at just before Tell Rifaat. They're still amassed outside of Tell Rifaat, and Turkish President Erdogan said that the Turkish army is going to attack Tell Rifaat next, but they haven't done that yet. They're kind of on hold. And for the last few weeks, they've amassed more forces near Tell Rifaat, and especially more forces in the Idlib province, which is right next to Hamah. So Turkey has strengthened its position in Idlib, and the only reason for them to be there would be to fight against the Syrian army in Hamah. So Jeremiah chapter 49:23 is, just inches away from being fulfilled. And also in Idlib, you might have heard about all the outskirts of Damascus that were being shelled by the Assad regime in the last couple months. All those positions were the last rebel positions around the outskirts of Damascus, and the Syrian regime finally got it's really Al-Qaeda forces out from around Damascus. So they've retreated north to Idlib, but for the most part. So there are I think there are about 80,000 Al-Qaeda forces now in Idlib, and I'm not sure how many Turkish forces. There were 25,000 maybe a month and a half ago, and it may be 2 or 3 times more of that now. I really don't know, but there are a lot more Turkish forces in Idlib and a lot more Al-Qaeda forces in Idlib. And if you read some news reports, some people are saying, hey, wait a minute, all these Al-Qaeda forces are in Idlib in refugee camps, or just being supported and fed by Turkey. And wait a minute, Turkey could redeploy these troops to fight against the Syrian army, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. So the Bible tells us about this in Jeremiah chapter 49, verses 23. Hamah is confounded in Arpad. They have heard evil tidings. That means that they've heard an evil report, maybe about a coming invasion or something. And Jeremiah goes on to say that after they hear these evil reports, after Hamah and Tell Rifaat hear these evil reports, that the residents of Damascus will flee, and then Damascus will be destroyed. So the destruction of Damascus begins at Hamah and Tell Rifaat. And I know a lot of people get excited when they see Iran fighting Syria, you should. Israel, and you should get excited. But that's not the main story in this scenario today. This is a very similar thing that happened in 734 BC, and it identifies the Antichrist, or it helps to, and it's modeled after the Assyria invasion of Syria and then northern Israel in 734 BC. So we should expect some trouble between Iran and Syria and Israel, especially on their southern border. We should expect to see that. But I don't think it's going to be, World War III, and I don't think that Iran is going to enter Syria or Israel, or conquer Israel. It's not going to be as bad as a lot of people might think it could be. But I think that it could be a catalyst to finally get the Turkish army into Hamah and Tell Rifaat in northwestern Syria, and then to come down into Damascus and destroy Damascus. So I'm going to post this when Israel and Iran begin to fight a little more and people are paying attention. But that's the scenario. I've been telling people about this for 7 years. The destruction of Damascus and the Ezekiel chapter 38 invasion of Israel by a Turkish leader is modeled after the 734 BC Assyrian conquest of Syria and invasion of northern Israel. So that's the best way that you can understand what's going on today. So we should expect to see a skirmish between Israel and Syria and Iran in Syria. Then we should expect to see the Turkish army make a concerted effort to attack Hamah and Tell Rifaat in northwestern Syria, and then to come down into Damascus and besiege the city and destroy especially the capital of Syria, which is in Damascus. It's in the neighborhood called Old Damascus, and Jeremiah chapter 49 actually identifies that old neighborhood. Then we should expect to see Turkey lead the forces that are fighting inside of Syria now into northern Israel. And those nations are identified in Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 5, and that's Iran, Libya, and Sudan. Turkey will lead those three nations into Israel, and those three nations are already fighting inside of Syria. The Free Syrian Army is mostly Libyan and also contains Al-Qaeda forces from other northwestern or northern African nations, specifically Sudan. So we have Libya and Sudan in the Free Syrian Army, and we also have the Iranian army inside of Syria and Hezbollah, who are from Iran and Lebanon, but they're inside of Syria as well, fighting for Assad. So once Turkey leads these nations inside of Israel, there's some pretty big news. I think that Nahum chapter 1 and even Ezekiel chapter 38 describes Jesus Christ coming in a whirlwind with fire and brimstone and torrential rain to repel these Turkish-led forces once they get inside of Israel. And I have news for you if you haven't heard it from me before. I suspect that Jesus Christ, when he comes to turn back these armies, will also collect his church. The resurrection and rapture is very likely to happen at that time. So this is big news. Go to hightimetoawake.com. That's my website, and read my commentaries. Go to YouTube, watch my videos. Please read my books. You can find them on my website, hightimetoawake.com. And I'll talk to you next time. God bless.